The poor man's life is governed by fear, not the kind that comes from real danger, but the quiet, constant fear of loss. Every decision he makes is a negotiation with that fear. He doesn't ask, what can I gain? He asks, what might I lose? This is the foundation of the scarcity mindset, a mental prison where security feels like survival and risk feels like death. From a young age, he's taught to obey that fear. Society glorifies the saver, the cautious man who clips coupons and avoids mistakes. He's told that patience and restraint will one day make him rich. Work hard, save every dollar, and maybe, just maybe, you'll retire comfortably. But this is the great myth of delayed gratification, a narrative designed to keep men docile, obedient, and risk-averse. Because the longer you wait to act, the more power you surrender to those who already have it. Behavioral psychology calls it loss aversion, the idea that people feel the pain of losing far more strongly than the joy of winning. The poor man's brain magnifies that pain. He will refuse a small, smart risk if it means even the smallest chance of failure. He believes in stability more than opportunity, and that's why his life remains stable and small. If you ignore this lesson, you'll live a predictable, mediocre life. You'll work for others, worship safety, and tell yourself that you're being smart when you're really being scared. You'll save money while your time, the one thing you can't replace, slips away. But if you apply this truth, everything changes. You begin to see money as a weapon, not a shield. You understand that control doesn't come from hoarding wealth. It comes from using it to create movement, to influence, to command outcomes. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he wrote, "A ruler who hesitates to spend cannot command loyalty or fear." Power is built through action, not accumulation. The man who risks resources signals strength. The man who clings to them signals weakness. So the question becomes, if fear enslaves the poor, what do the powerful do differently? What secret do they understand about money that transforms it from paper into power? Wealthy men understand a truth that eludes almost everyone else. Money is not a possession, it's energy. It demands movement, flow, and purpose. The poor man clutches money like a lifeline. The rich man directs it like a current. He doesn't ask how to keep it. He asks how to make it multiply. Because when money stands still, it loses power. The rich don't spend to escape reality. They spend to shape it. Every dollar is a tool for leverage, to buy time, influence, access, and alliances. A wealthy man pays others so he can think, not work. He invests in relationships that open doors others don't even know exist. He purchases his way into circles where power breeds more power. To him, money is a key that unlocks systems of opportunity. This principle is ancient. Look at the Medici family of Renaissance Florence, merchants who became monarchs not by birth, but by strategic spending. They funded art not for beauty alone, but for control of perception. By financing Michelangelo and Leonardo, they immortalized their name in history. They turned wealth into culture, and culture into power. Machiavelli himself served their interests, learning firsthand that fortune bends to those who spend with intent. A poor man sees money as something to guard. A rich man sees it as something to command. That's the paradox. The more you try to protect money, the less it protects you. But the more you let it move, with intelligence and precision, the stronger it becomes. Money that doesn't move becomes your master. Money that circulates makes you king. This is the core of Machiavellian wealth. Power isn't in possession, it's in direction. The circulation of resources, influence, and opportunity is the true mark of dominance. And that flow, that constant calculated movement, is what we'll call the Machiavellian law of circulation. Power, like money, must move to grow. This is the Machiavellian law of circulation, the principle that stagnation equals weakness and movement equals dominance. Whether it's gold in an empire or capital in a bank account, once it stops flowing, it begins to die. Those who understand this law don't just spend, they reinvest. They keep energy, financial and psychological, in motion. That's how empires expand and individuals ascend. True wealth builders know that money is a tool for multiplication. Every dollar reinvested becomes a seed that yields more resources, not just financial ones, but social and intellectual capital as well. They invest in skill to increase capability, in influence to expand reach, and in opportunity to secure leverage. These men understand that the act of reinvestment isn't just financial, it's psychological. It programs the mind for growth, risk, and leadership. Contrast this with the two archetypes of spending. The consumer spender spends to escape reality, buying comfort, validation, or distraction. Every purchase feeds insecurity. He's the man who chases luxury before he's earned it. Mistaking image for power, his money moves, yes, but aimlessly, like a current with no direction. The strategic spender, on the other hand, spends to create advantage. He treats every expense as an investment, every transaction a calculated move on the board of life. When he spends, he gains. A course that builds skill, a dinner that builds a network, an asset that produces income. Every dollar is a soldier deployed to expand his reach. Think of two men, a worker and an entrepreneur. The worker saves religiously, guarding every paycheck. 10 years later, he has a modest balance, but the same life, the same ceiling. The entrepreneur reinvests relentlessly, risking loss but building leverage. He multiplies his influence, and eventually, his wealth. One man preserved, the other created. Here's the psychology behind it. The human brain equates action with control. When you circulate resources, you reinforce dominance. When you hoard, you signal fear, to yourself and to the world. But not all spending is power. Most men waste what they could have weaponized. And that's where the difference between strength and foolishness begins. Money isn't just currency, it's communication. Every financial move you make broadcasts a message to the world about who you are, what you believe, and how much control you command. People instinctively respect those who can move resources without hesitation, because confidence with money signals certainty, and certainty is the language of power. Among the elite, spending is rarely about necessity. It's about signaling dominance. The powerful spend to project control over their environment, over others, and over themselves. A wealthy man doesn't need to prove he has money. He demonstrates that he controls it. When he spends, it's deliberate, strategic, and detached. He doesn't flinch at the cost, because his focus isn't the price, it's the outcome. His ability to deploy money calmly shows that he trusts his own capacity to create more. That composure alone earns respect. This is the psychological battlefield. You understand, in every social hierarchy, spending is an act of psychological warfare. It's a display of abundance, not in the material sense, but in mindset. The man who can move resources without fear demonstrates freedom. He signals that he's above scarcity, above the desperation that governs average men. And subconsciously, others feel it. They treat him differently. They defer, follow, and align with him, because power gravitates toward those who act without fear. Contrast this with the quiet miser, the man who counts, hesitates, and hides behind caution. His restraint doesn't command respect. It signals dependence. People read his behavior and instinctively know he is ruled by his limitations. He may have money, but he doesn't own it. In the hierarchy of men, your relationship with money reveals your position before you speak a word. But here's the danger. What begins as power signaling can easily mutate into ego feeding. Many mistake validation for control, confusing reckless display with true dominance. And that's where the fall begins. In the trap of spending for approval instead of authority. Frugality has been rebranded as virtue, a badge of discipline, control, and smart living. But beneath that polished surface often hides something darker. Fear. The man who worships frugality tells himself he's being wise, but in truth, he's avoiding risk. He calls it strategy, yet it's hesitation. He says he's planning for the future, but he's really protecting himself from failure in the present. Minimalism and extreme saving are often illusions of superiority, comfort disguised as clarity. Society praises the man who lives below his means, but that phrase quietly translates to lives below his potential. The frugal man doesn't buy because he fears loss, not because he understands value. And while he waits, others build. While he measures every expense, others take the calculated risks that lead to power, visibility, and growth. There are two men in every society. One refuses to spend and stays invisible, cautious, clever, and completely forgettable. He never loses, but he never wins. The other man invests boldly. He buys tools, education, and relationships that elevate him. He understands that opportunity rarely comes to the cautious. It comes to those who are prepared to move. The first man avoids mistakes. The second man uses them as tuition for mastery. Frugality may keep you safe, but safety keeps you small. It's a philosophy that traps you in maintenance mode, always conserving, never creating. And what begins as careful budgeting slowly becomes a life of silent surrender. Fear disguised as wisdom is still fear. The Machiavellian truth is that money gains its strength from motion. To hold it too tightly is to drain it of purpose. The frugal man's goal is to survive. The strategist's goal is to dominate. So the question becomes, how do you spend like a strategist without becoming reckless? Most men spend emotionally. They buy to feel alive, to prove something, or to fill a void. But the strategist, the Machiavellian player, spends with precision. He treats money as a resource to deploy, not a reward to enjoy. Every dollar has a mission, and if it doesn't multiply power, it's wasted. The framework is simple but ruthless. Spend to gain leverage. Every purchase should either expand your skills, your network, or your assets. When you buy a course, tool, or experience that sharpens your mind, that's leverage. When you invest in relationships, dinners, or circles that connect you with influence, that's leverage. When you acquire assets that generate income while you sleep, that's leverage. Everything else, it's noise. A strategist avoids spending for pleasure or validation. He understands that emotional spending is modern slavery, the illusion of freedom through consumption. The dopamine hit from a new gadget or luxury brand is the cheapest drug on earth, sold to men who want to look powerful because they've never learned how to be powerful. Real players don't need to prove abundance. They create it. Here's the mental model. Every dollar must recruit another soldier. Your money should work for you, not sit in your account waiting to die of inflation or ego-driven impulses. If a purchase doesn't recruit more power, time, connections, or opportunities, it's not an investment, it's a liability. There's a sharp line between consumption and construction. Consumption feeds the ego. Construction builds the empire. One is temporary pleasure, the other permanent leverage. The man who consumes is enslaved by his desires. The man who constructs directs them toward conquest. The weak spend to feel strong. The strong spend to become untouchable. Every transaction reveals your intent. Are you trying to escape reality, or are you trying to reshape it? Spending, when done strategically, is an act of creation, the deliberate shaping of your environment to serve your long-term vision. This is how the powerful rise. They spend to control, not to cope. They use money to bend time and influence to their will. But every act of strategy demands a price, the willingness to risk. And that's where the next law begins. The philosophy of risk and reward. Power is born in risk. That's the Machiavellian truth most men will never accept. They want control without exposure, gain without gamble, and power without pressure. But that's not how the game is played. Every empire, every dynasty, every great fortune was forged in uncertainty. The ones who rise are those who learn to make risk their ally instead of their enemy. Those who never risk money remain slaves to it. They spend their lives protecting what little they have, serving the very system that exploits their fear. They call it being responsible, but it's really submission. Submission to comfort, to predictability, to the illusion of safety. The man who avoids risk avoids opportunity, and in doing so he chooses quiet servitude over dangerous freedom. Look at history. Empires expanded not through saving but through daring. Kings betting resources on wars, merchants risking fleets across unknown oceans, visionaries investing in ideas no one believed in. In the modern age, the pattern hasn't changed. The billionaires, investors and builders who dominate the world today still operate by one rule. Uncertainty is the cost of influence. The average man freezes when faced with loss. The powerful man moves forward anyway. That is why one commands and the other obeys. Risk is the great filter of society. It separates those who play the game from those who watch it. Every time you choose comfort, you step out of contention. Every time you choose risk, you sharpen your instincts, expand your reach, and prove to yourself that you can endure the chaos others run from. So what's the blueprint? How does a modern man weaponize this philosophy? Wealth is not a mystery, it's a system, and like all systems of power, it rewards those who think, not those who wait. The Machiavellian approach to wealth is cold, calculated, and precise. It rejects emotion and replaces it with strategy. It doesn't ask, how can I survive? It asks, how can I control? Step 1. Master perception. In the world of power, appearance is often stronger than reality. The man who looks abundant attracts opportunity. The man who looks desperate repels it. Make your money appear abundant, even when it's not. Move with composure, never with scarcity. People invest in confidence before they invest in competence. Perception is leverage. Use it. Step 2. Reinvest relentlessly. The powerful never let their money sleep. Every gain is rechanneled into growth. Skills that sharpen judgment, circles that expand reach, tools that multiply efficiency. Reinvestment turns effort into momentum. The moment you stop reinvesting, you stop rising. Step 3. Build leverage systems. The rich don't trade time for money. They control the flow of value. They own systems that operate even when they don't. Whether it's a business, network, or automated structure, their power scales because it's independent of their presence. You don't get rich by working harder. You get rich by building what works without you. Step 4. Detach emotionally. Never love money. Use it. Emotion makes you predictable. Detachment makes you dangerous. Treat every dollar as a soldier, expendable, replaceable, obedient. Sentimentality is the enemy of strategy. Step 5. Turn spending into strategy. Every transaction should purchase power, not pleasure. A strategist never asks, "Can I afford this?" He asks, "Will this make me stronger?" Comfort is consumption. Power is investment. The purpose of money is not to live. It's to dominate. This is the Machiavellian code of wealth. Control perception, command resources, and convert every dollar into influence. The man who follows this path doesn't chase money. He directs it. He doesn't seek success. He engineers it. The man who saves every dollar dies rich in numbers and poor in power. You heard those words at the beginning, and now you understand why they matter. The illusion of security is the greatest lie ever sold to men. The promise that safety equals success. But safety breeds stagnation, and stagnation breeds insignificance. Those who cling to comfort die quietly, surrounded by savings but starved of legacy. Every powerful man you admire, every builder of empire, every name carved into history, learned to master circulation. They understood that money, like blood, must move to give life. The flow creates energy, expansion, and dominance. Those who circulate resources control history. Those who hoard them are forgotten by it. Every day you hesitate to invest, another man builds the empire you dream of. Every moment you choose to save instead of strategize, someone else uses that same dollar to buy influence, freedom, or control. The cost of inaction is invisible until it's too late. This isn't just about money, it's about power, about the ability to shape your environment instead of submitting to it. The man who learns to move his resources, to invest, to take risks, to command flow, he becomes untouchable. The man who refuses remains comfortable, but irrelevant. So reevaluate every dollar you hold. Ask yourself, is it sitting idle, or is it working to expand your reach? Because wealth, like power, belongs to the man who moves first. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Fortune favors the man who spends to control it.